I'm so happy to see the two of you together and apparently in partnership over, I don't even know what all. I know that Bach flower remedies are involved and that the mind mirror is going to be involved at some point. So why don't I just say hello, Helen Hess on the left, and hello, Esther Ames on the right, and just let you ladies talk about what it is that you're doing together and some of your dates. We'd love to hear about the programs themselves and the dates of them.
Why, thank you, Judith. As you know, Judith, I studied with Anna Weiss in her first class for Awakened Mind practitioners, and Esther Esther took that class with me. So we are part of the original group that studied with Anna.
Fantastic. And when was that? Did you say when?
What was it? 2000? Was it, Esther? Something like that.
We finished in the spring of 2002. So we probably I went to Esalen, I think, for the first seminar with her. It must have been in 2000, and then the training class was a full year, ending in the spring of 2002.
That must have been one of her first trainings.
It was her very first training.
Wow.
Yeah, her very first practitioner training. She'd been doing the Esalen workshops for quite some time.
That's wonderful.
So as Esther and I have been together for a long time in terms of our spiritual path work. We started with Dr. Dorothy Gates in the 1980s and learned about the mind and how the mind works, and the very basics of EEG at that point, about beta and alpha. That was where it was at that point in time.
And the brain waves.
In the brain waves.
The basics.
Yeah, the very, very basics. And then in going to Anna's and hearing about that whole dynamic process of all the brain waves working together all at the same time, just was a total shift in consciousness about how we work as human beings. And so our goal in our practice together is about giving people a workbook about how do you really function as a human being. So we have our dynamic mastery class, which we start with the mind mirror to give people a languaging about consciousness and what is consciousness based on the mind mirror. As you know, Judith, the mind mirror is different from those EEGs everybody else uses. It's not real time. The patterns are different, and they did not have Anna working with those patterns for the years that she did to say, this is what this means, this is what that means, this is how we decrease beta, this is how we increase alpha, this is how we increase theta, and this is how we get more fun out of delta. And so just understanding how the brain waves work and then melding that through to how we work as human beings in terms of our attitudes, in terms of not only the words and the thoughts, but also the physical body and how that affects it, the emotions, and the spiritual realm. So dynamic mastery melds all of that together so that people start to become a master of themselves in the present moment time.
You know, that's fantastic because I know about you, Helen, that you are a psychiatric nurse, so you really have that body piece more than most people do.
Yeah, as a nurse practitioner, and I've been prescribing for over 22 years, I really have seen that individual biochemistry play out, as well as that everybody's such an individual. No two people are exactly alike. Even people born in the same family with the same parents, they are different people. And acknowledging that individuality is so important in the place of mastery, to really begin to turn within and get that inner information out. And that's one of the, I really like Anna's material, is that not only is it about feeding information to the subconscious, and that's mostly what hypnosis is about, it's about getting the information back out.
Right. Right.
You know that way you're coming from your own wisdom, not from what somebody else is telling you what to do. So we all get a chance to grow up and be our own individual people, function at this higher level. And that's what this world needs, is people functioning at a higher level to raise the consciousness of the entire world.
Amen.
Amen. So that's basically what dynamic mastery is about. This is how the mind works. We're starting with the mind mirror, and then this is how the mind works working with the mental and emotional and spiritual realms. And then I have programming built in with that where I show them and train them into easily going into and out of trance. And to me, trance is basically going into the subconscious mind, whether your eyes are open or eyes are closed. And doing that spiritualized programming for developing that inner sense of self that's already connected to spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And then you didn't go on and mention Bach flowers
Oh,
because it segs right into it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the Bach flower remedies. Well, Esther's been taking some trainings with me with Bach flowers and has used them for several years herself. I've been a Bach flower registered practitioner since like 2005 and used it in my psychiatry practice alongside with medications. And the flower remedies, the idea behind them that Dr. Batch had was that what mental and emotional disharmonies are is a disconnection from spirit. So it's just a symptom. And so you choose the flower remedies, and the flower remedies reconnect you to your higher self. So again, it's this theme of reconnecting to your higher self. And the flower remedies, what's lovely about the flower remedies is you don't have to convince yourself. All you do is choose the right remedy, and you get there. So there are times where I'll float the flowers in and out of the dynamic mastery training, depending upon what we're doing in the subconscious mind work. And of course, I also teach the Bach flower classes, as you know, Judith, because you've been contacted with me for quite some time.
Those remedies, I've asked you to prescribe them for me for various things, and have found them to be incredibly effective.
Mm-hmm.
Harmonious, with us.
Right. And they work so fast. So most people say, well, how fast does it take for the Bach flowers to work? Oh, about 10 seconds. We just have to choose the right one.
And be sure, be clear, it's over the counter. It's not actually a prescription.
Oh, it's not actually a prescription. And since it's a vibrational remedy, it's totally safe to take with medication.
Essentially, it's essential oils, right?
No, essentially it is the vibration of plants put into liquid form that you take by mouth. As you know, Judith, we're all energy beings, and we all have an energy field around us. And so do plants. So most of the plants that were chosen for the Bach flower remedies were already healing plants. And he just discovered that different vibrations of the plants matched the frequency that he wanted to engender in his clients. So the flower remedies are safe and they're very effective. It's a matter of choosing the right one. So for example, because I've been prescribing for so long, there's no medication for guilt, but there's a remedy for guilt. And then I have I've treated a lot of people with PTSD, and using a certain combination of flower remedies, I'm able to help people almost immediately with flashbacks and nightmares and hypervigilance that usually they're using very, very powerful medications for. So I feel very strongly about using and continuing the Bach flower remedies.
Very strongly.
Very strongly. Well, Esther, I was thinking about, remember that pitch that it was that stick form that Anna had that she pulled out, and it showed how everything was all connected together.
Wonderful globe.
Yeah, everything was all connected together. Well, that's kind of how I feel about what we're doing, is that the Bach flowers are connected to dynamic mastery, which is also connected to the awakened mind, and the mind mirror, which is also connected to the Kundalini yoga. And so it's like we're all connected to hypnosis. So it's all connected together. And every time I attempted to say, okay, I want to just focus and have one thought, one idea, one thing I'm working on, I go, well, but it's all connected up. Okay. Yeah.
You're going to have a series of classes, a group of people will enroll, and then you'll have a series of classes, and it starts with brainwaves, and then you're going to enfold into that the Bach flower remedies, and what else?
Consider dynamic mastery the whole. Okay. It has pieces of hypnosis, it has pieces of the mind mirror, it has pieces of Kundalini yoga, it has pieces of body chemistry, it has pieces of everything of who I am that I've learned about how do you become your own master. Then we have the ancillary classes of the Bach flowers, which is a total separate specialty. And now that Esther is really with me and we've done the training with the mind mirror together, we want to go ahead and offer a mind mirror class like Anna did at Esalen, where people are just having that experiential work with the mind mirror and learning how they can be their own biofeedback mechanisms with the felt state, and by landmarking the felt state, because that was where Anna's power was. It's not about people walking around being connected up. It's about learning what the connection means so that you can monitor yourself and be where you want to be when you want to be there. So so we have the Kundalini yoga classes that Esther's mostly teaching for me now. Esther also is a Kundalini yoga instructor as well as I am. The Bach flower classes, the Awakened Mind classes, and those feed into dynamic mastery. And then I'm also doing hypnosis training where I'm training hypnotists. Right now I have two they're doing both the training for the hypnosis as well as with the Bach flowers, because they know me and they see the power of this integrated piece. It just all fits together. It's
wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, how are you going to fit into this, Esther? And by the way, you both live in the same area, and we should say where you are.
So we're in Tucson, Arizona, and we have known each other since about 1990. We've taken a lot of training together, and that included Anna's practitioner training, and I followed Helen and her husband Stephen in taking the Kundalini yoga teacher training. So we have a lot that fits together in this way.
Well, and also you went to the same school for hypnosis
and
training.
I did go to Santa Fe to the same school. So where I fit in is teaching with Helen, backing her up in what she's the main instructor for in some cases, and teaching yoga.
We're also doing the individual piece. You can get a lot of information from the group, yet because people are so individual, sometimes an individual session with the hypnosis especially is where I'm looking for Esther to fill in for the individual pieces, so people can go and work on their own individual stuff rather than what we can do generically in a class. You can get a lot of information from a class, but when you're right in front of your own boulder, it really helps to have a hypnotist there to break the boulder, take you over or under or through it, in order to make that final leap, that final change into where you want to go as a person. So I see it as an unfolding process of these classes feeding into each other, and also developing individual practitioners who are then we can help the people who are attracted to our groups to work through their stuff. So there's this flow between coming to be seen individually, going back out into the group practice.
You sound very much like the dynamic duo.
We're gonna get capes. Right?
Yeah, we're gonna get capes. So, always wanted my nursing cape.
Yeah. So I have a background in Jungian psychology and in Reiki and NLP, and I love to see the individual clients. While I'm seeing increasingly, Helen really loves to teach. And we know with hookups and everything with Awakened Mind training, it really helps to have more practitioners in the room to help monitor what's going on and help individuals through that process.
Absolutely.
We've already started teaching the dynamic mastery class, so our third class comes up in February. We're in the process of migrating 3 websites, and I'm still in the process of that because that requires a fair amount of writing, as you well know, Judith, and having done your own websites, yes. And the Bach flower classes are ongoing as well. I will be teaching a level 2 in January, and then we have set up classes all throughout 2018 and have classes set up. Our first the first Awakened Mind class is going to be in May. Did you write the May date down?
It's May 5th and 6th.
May 5th and 6th is our first Awakened Mind class. Ideally, we'd like to do at least 2 this year. I just got to October and said, okay, well, let me see how the world unfolds before I set up that second date for the Awakened Mind. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
So we are already in process. Esther already has space now for being able to see individual clients, and I've been seeing individual clients. So the individual is about getting that set up, making an appointment. Right now, is calling the office so that we can schedule it in. What I'm looking for my website to do is to have an integrated calendar so people could schedule their own schedule right online instead of having to try to find us in between whatever we're doing, which is a lot right now. Mm-hmm.
What about you, what you did as a practitioner for some of your practicums? I know I worked some with teens who were able to practice with the mind mirror technology and focus more on some lesser used brainwave patterns so that they were able to focus in beta better.
Mm-hmm.
And what did you do?
Oh, I worked mostly with people with PTSD. So what I found out with the PTSD people is the huge delta. So to change that to where essentially they're using that delta for intuition rather than for hypervigilance.
How did you do that?
How did I do that? Well, it's a mix of hypnosis, some somatic therapy about actually physically getting into the body, some grounding work with some Kundalini yoga meditations, primarily getting the first chakra very much so open and grounded. And then the Bach flowers, of course, as well, because the Bach flowers deal with the terror. I can use the Bach flowers for the terror and the hypervigilance and the feeling of being dirty and the grief and the guilt, depending upon what their specific cluster of symptoms were. So yeah, all parts of my toolbox are used for whatever is needed to happen. So it's because I've been in psychiatry for so long, most of my practicums are going to be, most of my experience has been mostly with people who have some kind of trauma background, because that's where they go to look to, that's where they're looking to get help these days.
Will
Yes.
people in your classes basically be kind of general population, or are you looking for meditators who want to advance consciousness, or are you looking for the population of people who have these kind of deeper needs?
I'm looking for people who are higher functioning so they can function even better to help take care of the rest of the world. You know, I've worked enough with the lower functioning population groups, and you can only move them so far. Yet we have people who are right on the cusp. People have been meditating for years, but just, you know, don't know how to quiet their mind or have their own personal block. That doesn't take as much to move them on, so that we start to create this greater block of consciousness to increase the overall consciousness of the world. So what I talk about in terms of dynamic mastery is about becoming consciously conscious. You know, as Anna was talking about beta, that supposedly that was the brainwave of consciousness, yet you and I both know when people are in beta, they're not necessarily conscious. They're just doing a lot of thinking. They're not necessarily present. And you also know from doing your own meditations that you can consciously go down into theta and get the creativity that you want and bring it back up, or go into delta and pick up that information. Actually, delta just kind of brings it in. So that's the power and the beauty of the awakened mind material over any other hypnotic material I've ever been in, is how do you consciously change these states of consciousness to get where you want to go when you want to go.
Well, and with that goes the peak performance piece in the zone. You know, we can talk about that as the snaking pattern or the awakened mind pattern. And what people out there practically want to know in a lot of cases is, you know, I know once in a while I'm in the zone, but I don't know how to get back and forth, or I don't know how to do it consistently.
Right.
And other people define that as peak performance. We talk about it in terms of brain waves and say this is a place where you can practice using those together. So you get the achievable felt state and results functioning in your world when you really want them.
And back to what you were talking about, Judith, is who are we attracting? We are essentially attracting meditators and hypnotists, people who are already used to wanting to go into the subconscious mind, but don't quite have the facility that they're looking for. Most meditation instructors that I've seen basically say, close your eyes and focus on a mantra. And that takes a long time
Or the
to get there.
candle.
Yeah. Our goal is about training as many people to be consciously conscious, and so that they have more flexibility in their state of consciousness to be where they want to be when they want to be there. And it's doable, and it's doable. Yes.
And the really nice thing is you are sort of central then to the whole United States, and people can fly in from all over to stay in hotels and train with you either for the Awakened Mind weekend, or then you have local people who can come to you for the longer courses that end up being classes in a series. Wonderful.
Well, I have people coming from out of state already for Bach flower classes, and out of town from other places in Tucson to come to the Dynamic Mastery class. The Dynamic Mastery class is a weekend. Each of the Bach flower classes is a weekend. The only class I have that is long-term right now is the hypnosis training. That would be over a 9-day period of time, which the next class being in April. So I don't know whether we're going to end up doing the practitioner training yet or not. I think we have enough on our plate right at the moment.
When they're ready,
we'll be there.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm excited that you're teaching the hypnosis classes, because I have been developing some criteria for practitioners to be practitioner trainers, and hypnosis is one of the elements for coach trainers as well, hypnosis, because I know that when I took a hypnotherapy or hypnosis certification program, there were so many resonances with Awakened Mind training that I was just astonished, really, and delighted. But it gave me so many more tools for working with people and with the subconscious mind. And it's a wonderful expansion and extension of the analyzed material, really, that some of it goes back to Max Cade and picks up, where he was coming from. And so I would just suggest that if there are practitioners who are live anywhere near you or can fly into you, that would be a wonderful thing for them to enroll in that April course. It's unparalleled, really, in its ability, hypnosis's ability to teach people how to work with the mind. And in, situations where normally we say that we don't work with people who are experiencing trauma, because then that takes us out of the consciousness trainer and puts us in the therapist, and that's a no-no situation. But with the hypnosis certification, you can do that, and you have so many more tools for doing it as well.
Right. Well, Anna's focus with the Awakened Mind was about measuring state and how do you change state. And she did not want to tell people what to do or where to go. And she was very clear that the mind mirror is measuring state. It's not measuring content. Hypnosis is about the content.
Yes.
And what I loved about the Awakened Mind training was how you can use those prepositional phrases to get people down into theta.
Right.
So it does tend to enhance the hypnosis training, because now we're marrying these two techniques together.
Well, I wish you all the best. I'm sure everyone else does too. And we will do a Eureka Times article that has all of your dates in there. I'm sure there'll be a wonderful enrollment, and really look forward to hearing more from you as time goes by. Thank you. Happy holidays.
Oh, thank you so much, Judith. Take care.
Have a great Thanksgiving.
Yes. Have fun with your family, okay?
You too.
Will do.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Judith.